content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? What's good? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. This is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. So if you're coming in, man, right now, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button so you can stay abreast of what's going on the Green Gorilla channel. The next thing I want to do, man, is give an extra special shout out to all my haters, man. What's good, haters? How y'all doing, man? I hope y'all having a pleasant afternoon, man. And I hope you have a pleasant evening, man. Be good, haters. And the next order of business, man, is I want to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel. So let's start that process, man. Let's get that cracking. I want to give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters. I want to give a shout out to Gay Black Pill, Romello Scruggs, Ryan, Darnell Smith, Chris York, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Soul Pen, Anu 219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku 217, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. Big up, big up, big up. And on my YouTube side, I want to give a shout out to Seven Coast Dojo, Roguish the Billmonger, Destro, Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papa Didas, Travis King, and Raiz Muajib. Big up, big up! I want to give a shout out to Adam Williams, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Timothy Blewett, Brotherly Love, Charles Gilmore, Diego Harry, and Patricia Colley. Big up, big up, big up! I want to give a shout out to 7Q Pitt, Kwaku Asasi, Supertech, Liz Terrell, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Antonio Ferrier, Barry Little, and Alan Wiley. Big up, big up, big up, big up! Big up to Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, 77 Base X, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, and Apex Prowler. Big up! Big up to Kareem, Doc LaRock, Julius Ferguson, Jay Charles, Mark Holt, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Black Dog, Odd Collar, Deanne, Donna Watts, Cozy Corner, and hiphop.catv. Big up, big up. Big up to Coach DC, The Remedy, Kashif Caldwell, Ominous Black, I Am Black Man, Nichita, True King 337, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, Brian McMurray, and TD Hip Hop Media. Big up to y'all, man. Big up to Drew Main, Artisan MC, Mr. Heat, Afro Shop, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, and DH. Big up, big up. Big up to C-Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Arthur Unknown, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalan Chakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, Truth 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, W. Pierre 1, BGS Ibmore, Marvin Battle Jr., and I can't forget my brother in heaven, Force Windu. Big up, big up. Y'all deserve a round of applause, man. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel and helping me to keep things going on, in this space, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And if you're inquiring about how you too can become a member of the Green Gorilla channel, well, here's how you do it. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program. that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, man, we back. I'm the G with a PhD. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely. That's what you need to understand now. So if you got virgin ears, guard your ears. Let me run it.
The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Every now and then you might hear something. You might, if you don't say shit, fuck, ass, bitch, all that kind of language, you might want to guard your ears. You might want to switch off. I'm just saying, because I go in. I go hard in the paint. But you know, today I'm going to have a conversation that I was requested to have by a brother named Terrain 1017. And he wanted me to have a conversation about a book by the name of Yurugu. Now, this book was written by a woman, a scholar, a professor by the name of Donna Richards. And the book has been in publication since 1994. I read it around 1996, 97. I read it when it first came out. It's a rather lengthy book, so I can't go into all of it. There's no way for me to dive into this entire work and to break it down page by page. But what I can do is give you some insight into the introduction of the work, and by gleaning what's happening during the introduction, you can pretty much get the gist of the concept of the book. So let's just get right into this, man. You know, I like to dive right on in. So let's get right on into it, man. Let's go. Yurugu. All right, man, so this book is called Yurugu, again, written by Marimba Ani, also known as Donna Richards. That's a government name. And the subtext to this book is basically an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior, okay? Now, again, there is no way I could read this entire book or break down and analyze the concepts throughout the entirety of the book. You can get caught up in the minutia and you can't see the forest for the trees. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the forest. We're going to outline and adumbrate this work merely by looking at the introduction and her glossary of terms and some of the diagrams and charts that appear at the beginning of the book. Then after I get through doing that, we'll take a quick break, and then I'll open up the lines and see if some people want to have a conversation about this topic, this worthy topic. And look, again, it's a lengthy book, man. And here's the table of contents to this book. Okay? I'm not going to read the author's note, the dedication, the introduction, the incantation, and all of that, the acknowledgments. We're going to skip over that. But I am going to go over the glossary. Because if you want to understand this book, you got to understand the glossary. Okay? And the book is, I think, pretty much broken into 10 chapters. First chapter, Utamawazo, the cultural structuring of thought. Chapter 2, religion and ideology. Chapter 3, aesthetic, which means regarding or contemplating beauty and the power of symbols or art. Chapter 4 is about self-image. Chapter 5 is about the image of others. Chapter 6 is about rhetoric and behavior. Chapter 7, intercultural behavior. Chapter 8, behavior towards others. Chapter 9, progress as ideology. Chapter 10, universalism, which she regards as the syntax of cultural imperialism, and I do too. And lastly, there's the conclusion. But let me just say this before I even get started, man. Like, this woman, to be perfectly honest, man, she's a genius, man. Okay? Like, she is a genius. This is a systematic work, and it covers a large amount of ground. Okay, so I can't read all of the contents of the book, but what I can do is go through the glossary, which is right here, and we can decipher some of these terms. And we can, peruse some of these concepts. And by doing that, and I hope that, there is some sort of clarity in what you can see here. It might not be as clear as it would be if it was an online PDF. But I got a copy of this book. If anybody wants a copy of it, man, hit me up, with email, which you can find on my channel page here at YouTube, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. Okay? Just to let you know. But anyway, man, the glossary starts off with 3 terms. And you can tell that they're at the top of the list here. I'm circling them. Okay, these 3 terms. Asili, Utamawazo, and Utamaroho. Now, these are the most important concepts, and they, for the most part, provide the foundation for the rest of the book. So let's look at these concepts, and we'll look at the rest of the concepts here. But yeah, this woman is a genius, man. I'm not going to even lie to you. Now, I don't agree with everything she says, but a large amount of what she says in this text, I agree with. I'm just here to let you know right now. Off the rip. So anyway, what is asili? It's an African word, and basically, in her understanding, it's the logos, and that's a Greek word, logos, the word. I know you heard this in church, all you church-going Negroes and shit. I love Jesus and shit. I love me some him. Hey, man, do what you gotta do, bro. You know what I'm saying? Do what you gotta do, man. But anyway, man, the logos of a culture within which its various aspects cohere. All of the aspects of the culture come together in the asili. It is the developmental germ, the seed of a culture. It is the essence, the ideological core, the matrix of a cultural entity, which must be identified in order to make sense of the collective creations of its members. Now, it's important for you to understand that every culture has an asili according to Marimba Ani. Every culture does. But at this point, we're not going to explore African culture in all of its various aspects. We're going to look at European culture. You saw the thumbnail for the video, man. You see it. Baphomet. It could be Set. It could be Loki. A whole bunch of entities that create division and cause confusion. At any rate, that's the asili, the core, the germ, the seed of a culture. Next is Utamawazo. Now, Utamawazo, according to Marimba Ani, is culturally structured thought. In Greek terms, it would be epistemology, or philosophical terms, it would be epistemology. It is the way in which cognition, thinking, pondering, thought processes is determined by a cultural asili. The seed of the culture gives birth to thinking and cognition, and this is what she's talking about. It is the way in which the thought of members of a culture must be patterned if the asili, the seed, the core, the germ is to be fulfilled. And then she comes next to the concept, Utama Roho. Now, according to Marimba, Dr. Richards, the vital force of a culture is its Utama Roho, the vital force of a culture, and it's set in motion by the Asili. It is the thrust or energy source of a culture. It is that which gives it its emotional tone and motivates the collective behavior of its members. It is the spiritual aspect, the emotive, the energy aspects of the culture. Now, what she does is she makes it clear. Both the Utama Wazo, the cognition aspect, and the spiritual emotive aspect are born out of the Asili, the seed. And in turn, they affirm the seed, the core. They should not be thought of, she says, as distinct from the core, the seed of the culture, but they are nothing more than manifestations of the seed or the core of the culture. That's something you need to know. That's something you need to understand. And I know some people right now are wondering what's my email address. You can find it on my YouTube page in large. So Joe DC, that's where you can find it, my brother. But I don't want to get too far off the path, man. I want to stay on this path so I can get through this, because it's, not too lengthy, but some of these charts and these diagrams and these concepts are difficult to apprehend and grasp, and I want to make sure that you get it. Next, she comes to a term that she calls cultural other. Of course, black people are cultural others. People of African descent are perceived as cultural others. And in her words, it's a conceptual, existential construct which allows Europeans to act out their most extreme aggression and destructiveness, while simultaneously limiting their collective self-destruction on a conscious level. That's a lot right there, man. In other words, the cultural other, this concept, this construct, allows Europeans to be violent and destructive towards others, but limiting their own self-destruction in relation to thinking about themselves. That's a hell of a thing, man. And also, another term that she uses is rhetorical ethic. Now, according to Marimba Ani, and this is dope right here, basically, the rhetorical ethic is the culturally structured European hypocrisy. Hey, man, this woman got so many gems in this book, bro. I'm telling you, man. Yes, I agree. Rhetorical ethic. This is the lip service. This is the forked tongue. This is the talking out the side of your neck aspect of European culture. They talk about rights. They talk about freedom and liberty and all this bullshit, but they started off their country with these concepts and slavery simultaneously. Now tell me how the fuck that's possible, man. How you gonna have a country based on liberty and freedom, but it has a slave-based economy? But that's the European for you. That's the Yurugu for you. That's how they get down. But anyway, it's their European culturally structured hypocrisy. It is a statement framed in terms of acceptable behavior towards others that is meant for rhetorical purposes only. In other words, it's some straight bullshit. Its purpose is to disarm intended victims of European and cultural imperialism. It is meant for export only. It is not intended to have significance within the culture. Its essence is its deceptive effect in the service of European power. It's bullshit. They talk about freedom and justice for all. You must heed the call. We're all one. We're part of a great big democratic experiment and all this bullshit. They got more black men locked up in America than they got women locked up in the entirety of the fucking world. They hung us from trees. We are the strange fruit that America bore. Sweet land of liberty, my country 'tis of thee. Of thee I sing. Man. But y'all love it though, right? Y'all love this shit though, right? I love America. I love this place. I love it. I love it. Man, stop daffy dancing, man. Stop daffy dancing, man. Stop it. Anyway, she goes on to talk about what she calls first world people, African descendants throughout the world. Then she goes on to talk about majority peoples, the member of indigenous core cultures of the world regarded collectively, but excluding the European minority, because white people are not the majority of peoples on the planet. But if you become thoroughly immersed and inculcated by the concepts, the ideals, and the habits and the practices of people in Western culture, you'll think that this shit is all that exists. This is all that there is, that it has to be, that there can be nothing more than this. Then she defines nationalism, which she defines as the ideological commitment to the perpetuation, advancement, and defense of a cultural, political, racial entity and way of life. This use of the term is neither limited to nor determined by the boundaries of a nation state, as defined Eurocentrically. So nationalism doesn't necessarily have to do with having a landmass in which you have a homogeneous group of people, although it can be that. And it's neither negative nor positive at the current moment, but then she qualifies nationalism because she defines then, thereafter, European nationalism, which she characterizes as all forms of thought and behavior which promote European hegemony and global white supremacy. Then she has a term called white nationalism, which she defines as an expression of European nationalism, which identifies Caucasian racial characteristics with superiority and African racial characteristics with inferiority. Next, she defines cultural imperialism, the systematic imposition of an alien culture in the attempt to destroy the will of a politically dominated people. Boom. The systematic imposition of an alien culture in the attempt to destroy the will of a politically dominated people. There's a lot of cultural imperialism going on here. So much so that you got Negroes, man, they willing to do the motherfucking Daffy dance all day long. You tell them to stop doing the Daffy dance and you try to make them see the light. try to stop them from being deaf, dumb, and blind, they'll kill your ass or deride you or humiliate you and say you're the problem when their ancestors was hung from trees, raped, extorted, subjected to dehumanization. Talk about Stockholm Syndrome, god damn. Anyway, the mechanism of cultural imperialism causes cultural insecurity and self-doubt within the dominated group. Separated from their ancestral legacy, they lose access to their source of political resistance. Meaning they lay down like a wet-ass noodle and do whatever the white man says. Basically, they do the Daffy dance. Daffy dance. Do the Daffy dance. Do the Daffy dance. Do it. Daffy dance. Do the Daffy dance. Do the Daffy dance. Do the Daffy dance. Do it. Do it. Yeah, do it. Next, she defines scientism, which she defines as the ideological use of science, defined Eurocentrically as an activity which sanctions all thought and behavior. That is, science becomes sacred, the highest standard of morality. Now, I have my concerns with her understanding of scientism, and I understand where she's coming from. I get it. The deification of science to me is problematic. But I've taught the philosophy of science, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm an anti-realist constructionist as it pertains to science. It's a tool, but it's just a tool. You can misuse a tool. You can wear out a tool. You can obsess over a tool. So, there's some elements of truth to what she says here in her critique of scientism, okay? Because she is going to critique it in the context of this work. The next concept she talks about is objectification, which she calls a cognitive modality which designates everything other than the self as object. Man, that's important, man. That's important, man. Because a lot of us objectify other people. Even as African Americans, ADOS people, FBA people, whatever kind of people you consider yourself to be. According to Marimba Ani, you're a first world person. But these Yurugus are minorities in her eyes, and in my eyes too. This is just a reality. They're not the majority in the world, okay? But everything other than you is an object. This process, even nature is an object. Other people are objects. Everything is an object if it's not you. And this process mandates a despiritualized, isolated ego and facilitates the use of knowledge as control and power over other. And this is what she links to science. Science is not a means by which to gain insight into reality materially and spiritually. It's a means by which to control shit. And I do know for a fact that one of the first scientists, Sir Francis Bacon is responsible for developing the novum organum, which is called the new tool, as opposed to the organum, which was developed by Aristotle. But the new tool, the novum organum, is supposed to torture nature, torture nature, not live in harmony with nature, but to torture nature for her secrets. This is how they think. Desacralization, the alienation and objectification of nature. In this view, nature becomes an adversary. This approach to reality originates in unnaturalness. Then she goes on to talk about materialization. This begins with the separation of spirit and matter. Aristotle would call it form and matter. But it begins with the separation of spirit and matter, like they're not conjoined, like they're not one. This creates all kinds of problems for Europeans: the mind-body problem, free will determinism problems, afterlife problems, or what you would call eschatological problems. But the whole thing is, why can't materiality be inhered with spirituality from the outset? Why is there a necessity to fracture reality into two different planes? Why? But that's what they do. This separation in turn results in the denial of spirit, the loss of meaning, and the loss of cosmos. And spirit to her, when it's denied, is called despiritualization. The inability to experience spirit. Objectification used ideologically results in the desacralization and despiritualization of the universe. I remember, man, teaching ethics and showing a speech that was purported to have been given by Chief Seattle, which the city of Seattle was named after. And his response to one of the presidents who wanted to buy their land was, how do you sell the piney needles? How do you sell the flowers? They are sisters. How do you sell the sunshine that glistens over the waters? How do you sell that? Our land is sacred to us. We can't sell it. It's not a thing to be sold. It's a living, breathing part of who we are. We're interconnected to it. It's how we live. They came in, these Yurugus came in, killed buffaloes, killed the indigenous population, and start, raising the land, flattening areas and shit to use it so they can extract resources from it like it's a fucking gas station. Everything in the world is like just a gigantic gas station. Let's gas up. Let's take what we want, take what we need, and leave it fucked up. It's like a kid coming into the house, making a sandwich and shit, and leaving all the condiments open, leaving the pack of meat open like, fuck it, I got what I want, I'm good. Reductionism. The reduction of phenomena to their most simplistic manifestations. This occurs when the mind is not able to perceive deeper, more textured levels of meaning. As a cognitive deficiency, it prevents comprehension of metaphysical truths. So basically, reducing everything down to just material and simplistic phenomena. The next concept she refers to is reification. And this happens when theory is used as law rather than as metaphor, and when process is replaced by factual manipulation. Reification is the hardening of dynamic, vital truth into deadened dogma. In other words, the laws are not really laws, they're metaphors, they're constructs to give you access to understanding, But you can't reify it and harden it and restrict it and act like that's all that there is. And look, there's so much about the universe that we don't know. And there's only so much the science can give us access to. We don't even know what the fuck dark matter and dark energy is. We don't even have the capacity to begin to comprehend or access the sum totality of reality. But we act as if we do. I can tell you most assuredly as a philosopher of science, we do not. We don't. The next concept she comes up with is lineality. Boy, these people, these Yurugus are linear. One way that I would describe it is, and look, there's something good about lineality to some degree, but when it's overdone, it becomes stiff and rigid. I would compare and contrast the way African peoples or first world peoples regard a sum total of thinking, creation, feeling as like jazz. Whereas their shit is like classical music. It's rigid, linear, like marches, cadence, jump, step, jump, 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 jump. But black people don't do that, man. We flow, we're fluid. Even the way they dance is stiff and shit. And I ain't talking about some of the people who can stand out and who got dynamic abilities. I'm talking about like most of these people, man. So lineality is the interpretation of phenomena as being made up of unidimensional separate entities arranged in sequential order. This conception is necessarily secular and results in desacralization. It denies circularity and the spiral of organic development. And she's referring here to the Fibonacci sequence. Like, nature is not in and of itself a linear endeavor. You don't see straight lines in nature. You see waves in nature. Crests and trolls, ups and downs, circles and cycles and series. You don't see straight lines. But hey. This linearity, she says, prevents transcendence of ordinary time and space, thereby denying ancestral ontological experience. And the last three concepts, or the last four concepts, are dichotomization, which she refers to as a mechanism which accompanies objectification. It is the splitting of phenomena into confrontational, conflicting parts. It facilitates the pursuit of power over other, and is therefore suited to the European asili. So everything is a conflict. In the beginning, with the philosophers, man, like the pre-Socratic philosophers, I really can't get into it because I'm not trying to go over your head and talk about something you really don't, not that you can't understand it, but you haven't studied it. So some of the earliest pre-Socratic philosophers viewed the cosmos as at war. Everything is at war. I'm talking about Heraclitus. The Logos creates an agonistic war of parts of the universe against other parts, not parts working interrelatedly with emergent properties which give birth and manifest unique incarnations, but war, destruction. The next concept she defines is spirit, the creative force which unites all phenomena. It is the source of all energy, motion, cause, and effect. As it becomes more dense, it manifests as matter. It is the meaningful level of existence. And if you study the Ausarian or the Memphite theology, this is what they get at. Is that there's energy, and when the energy becomes more dense, it becomes matter. But everything is energy. And all energy is interconnected, and energy is neither created nor destroyed. So spirit is neither created nor destroyed. It just shifts and changes fluidly from one incarnation to the next. Then she defines spirituality, the apprehension of cosmic interrelationship, the apperception of meaning in existence, and the degree to which one is motivated by such meaning. Spirituality is one's ability to relate to the metaphysical levels of experience. It unites thought and feeling, and thereby allows for intuitive understanding. This cognitive affective sense is transmitted through collective ancestral relationship. The absence of spirituality is ancestral legacy. Now I can tell you most assuredly, man, a lot of people are not in touch with their intuitive faculties at all. How do you create other than through intuition? Especially, how do you create new things other than to be inspired? Not outspired, inspired. And lastly, she defines the subject matter of the entire text. Yurugu, which is a being in Dogon mythology, which is responsible for disorder in the universe. This is a being conceived in denial of the natural order, which then acts to initiate and promote disharmony in the universe. In African cosmology, such a being is deficient in spiritual sensibility, is perpetually in conflict, is limited cognitively, and is threatening to the well-being of humanity. So those are the definitions. And I'm gonna take a quick break because I wanna break this up into segments. I don't wanna hit you all upside the head and get you bored and all out of whack. So I'm gonna take a break and then I'm gonna come back to this after this commercial break, man. Be right back in 1 second. All right, man, we back. I'm the G with a PhD. Of course, you know where you are, man. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And, we just took a little break for a second. And we're going to get right back to it. But, I figured that you needed a little mental break just for a quick second, And again, in case you're new to the channel, and before you get on here, I'm going to put up a disclaimer.
The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
So, I don't mean to rant and rave, but every now and then I will rant and rave, okay? And it is what it is. So let me get right back to the lecture at hand, man. And look, there is an invite in the chat, so when I get done with this, we can have a conversation about this. Whether you agree with this, whether you disagree with this, whatever it is, we can have this conversation, okay? So, let's get right back into it. Now, the next thing that Marimba Ani does in this text is she draws up a series of charts. Okay? There's a series of charts that she uses in order to try to explain her concepts. Okay? Now, the first thing she does is she creates this chart where there is the equation cosmos minus spirit equals the objectified universe. The universe is not something that you're a part of, that you're interrelated to, that you're connected to, that is the source of all energy, motion, cause, and effect. It becomes an object, something to explore, something to control, something to manipulate, something to torture for its secrets. Okay? Then she says, there's an arrow there, the Utama Rojo, which is the emotive or energy aspect of European culture, right? Which basically has as its, spiritual energy to create the objectified universe, right? And it's the process of the thinking. And this is what she says. So a thinking being, this is referencing Descartes, because all she's doing is talking about philosophy and even Plato, okay? So you have a thinking being minus a spiritual being equals a knower, someone who's epistemologically superior. So that's your epistemological aspect. Then there's the Utama Rojo aspect, the reality, right? Reality minus meaningfulness equals fact. And then she has, on the left side, becoming, on the right side, achieving. Then she goes on underneath it and says phenomena and experience minus the interconnecting context adds up to object. Right? And then she says, underneath all of this, European control ego plus detachment equals refined rational thought. And this is just like a hallmark of scientific inquiry. Okay? So it's thinking in a detached way, and that gets you to what is the most supreme manifestation of thought. An objective, impartial, detached observer of mere fact. Okay? And she basically says that the European controlled ego controls emotional being, detaches itself from the senses, denies spirit, which it fears, and dominates objects, the objectified other nature. Okay? And is fulfilled through propagation, affirmation, and perpetuation of objective truth, which she says is based on denial of spiritual reality, predicated on self-alienation. For example, a method of control implies the devaluation of the African self and the source of African knowledge. Spirit justifies African enslavement and exploitation. Okay? So that's just this chart, right? And then on another chart, she has another diagram, and this is one to the left, right? The European thought process, mind control for world domination, okay? And the seed. The core of the culture is to seek power. And then in the downward arrow on the left, she says, Plato's discovery, epistemology, concept of truth can become ideology. Epistemology can become ideology, politicized mythology. And you will see this. Those persons who are supposed to be controlled of the state or the philosopher kings who have access to the truth. Whereas everybody else, they're either wage earners or soldiers, and they need to obey the commands of the philosopher kings. This epistemology leads to the establishment of, she says, the academy, which has no meaning, objectification, which renders the universe as having no spirit, rationalization, which leads to total control, the training ground for the dominant, the rule or to rule, and the dominated to be ruled. And you can see, man, you see elements of this way of thinking. Like one of the things that the slave masters on plantation said about black folks was that they were childlike. They really can't think well. They never mature and rise into adulthood because they have these fantastic ideas about the nature of reality. You see this over and over again. Like there's always the postulation that people who are non-European, that they're inferior cognitively and emotionally. And you see this on the job, how your workplace is organized and structured. Everyone has to be detached. They have to speak with a certain tone. They have to carry themselves in a specific kind of way. Okay? And then on the right side, the asili, or the need for power, creates the utamawazo. The way Europeans are taught to think defines the universe for the use of European power over others. This leads to the objectification by denying spirit and degrading nature. Nature is just a big, fat, gigantic gas station. Oh, let's create some shit that is not biodegradable, and when we want to waste it, let's just throw the shit in the fucking river, or let's just throw it in the ocean, and subject the whole sum totality of humanity to it. And not to say that there aren't other people in other cultures who do this, but definitely not all cultures have operated in this way. The Native American culture didn't operate in that way. The African culture, before their connection to and their contact with Europeans, didn't behave that way. These are just the facts. We can look at the historical record and see this, man. Creation of chemicals for the creation of capital, for the creation of wealth for a small amount of people. Like they had factories, man, back in the day, man, like that set rivers on fire in America. But anyway, going down, she says they build institutions based on their utamawazo, which is their thought process, which teach the rest of us to think according to their rules. We're educated in their truth. Everything has to conform to their way of thinking because their way of thinking is universalizable. There are no other thought processes. There is no other way to approach the understanding of the cosmos and reality itself. Their way is the quote unquote scientific way. But anyway, she goes on to say underneath that Africans and other majority peoples define ourselves as inferior objects of European domination. We are trained to accept the systems of global white supremacy as the truth. Now, there are going to be European philosophers who also critique European culture along these lines and dimensions. One of them is Heidegger. Which I do happen to like, even though he was a damn Nazi. Let me rotate the screen right quick. Next, she talks about Christianity. which she sees as a core mechanism of the European assembly for the achievement of European world domination. Now, I know some of y'all love Jesus and shit. You know, some of y'all love Jesus. You know, but I'm going to tell you right now, man.
Yo, hey, man, pull your skirt down, B.
Pull your skirt down, man. Pull your skirt down. On the left side, she has, so, you know, it's like a matrix that she has here with a circle in the middle of the matrix. And there's concentric circles, right? So on the one side, she says, Christianity is patriarchal. And I know some of you are going to take pause with this, but you don't have the understanding of patriarchy that she does. Because she thinks that patriarchy, if it's balanced with feminine energy, is okay. But there has to be complementariness. And that's where the balance comes in. But if it's just nothing but patriarchy, that's where you get the issue. Okay? She talks about nature being identified by Christianity as sin and evil. Nature in and of itself is sinful and evil. Nature has to be controlled. It's rationalistic, which means it denies spirit. It has a fear of blackness. Whiteness is defined as good, and it identifies with the unnatural European self. And then going, down to the lower quadrant on the left side, she says, intensification of European they dichotomy, which leads to Christian exploitation, destruction, and domination of the heathen. I hearken back to the way the Christian Bishop Cyril obliterated the Library of Alexandria because it was pagan and heathen. At one time at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, you had the compendium of human knowledge in one place. And you had a woman who was the head of the Library of Alexandria named Hypatia. And because she was using a fucking sextant, which is able, to measure distances of celestial bodies and shit, because she was able to make predictions according to that, they said she was operating in, along the lines of the occult and magic. And they basically flayed the woman to death, man, and quartered her body and destroyed the Library of Alexandria. Because it wasn't Christian. And by that time, of course, Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official religion of Rome. It wasn't that this man was in any shape, form, or fashion actually moved by the spiritual teachings of the Gnostic Gospels or anything. He said, under this sign, we will conquer the cross. Which basically is the antithesis of what Christianity is supposed to be about. That the kingdom of God inheres in you. But I digress. On the right top quadrant, she has European imperialism, birth of European national consciousness. And underneath it, on the fourth quadrant to the right, the expansion of the European cultural self, the monotheistic ideal, and monolithic European control. Think about the people that came into contact with European Christians during colonialism, the native and autochthonous population of the United States. The Pope basically gave sanction to the decimation of the Native American population. And basically said that these people are going to have to adopt Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior in the language Spanish, which they had no ability to comprehend. So yeah, Christianity has been used as a tool of destruction. It was the Pope who also gave sanction to the exportation of millions of slaves from Africa to the New World to work the land. And at the same time, you're supposed to love and be forgiving and to show contrition. But where's there any symbol? You got people on the religious right who don't give a fuck about being apologetic, man. They feel like they are God's chosen people and they doing God's work on God's green earth by creating and causing havoc and destruction. Good God Almighty, man. Damn. The next chart, she talks about the European aesthetic. Their concepts of beauty. The European aesthetic and European dominance. Separation from nature. Rhythm. Ntu, which is universal life force. So perfection to them is non-spiritual, it's external and materialistic. So on the affective end, it's linear, angular, antiseptic, and white. On the right side of this triangle, there is cognitive, abstract, distant, pure, rational, elementary, or superficial. On the, the outer, the base of the triangle, there's the political, which she says is the European aesthetic causes self-hatred, inferiorization, and rejection of the non-European being. Now you got to ask yourself, man, like a lot of people talk about the critique of European culture as somehow being reverse racism, but just let's be real, man. Are we blending in American society? Like, are we actually like interacting and interconnecting as if there is no such thing as race at all? Come on, man. We got to keep it real here, man. Anyway, for them, the aesthetic is a place where pleasure equals technical control. They derived satiation from technical control. Displeasure is equivalent to nature because nature is undeveloped, unkempt, uncultivated, and it's malevolent in and of itself. Anxiety equals the spirit cannot be controlled because that's what they're anxious about. They're anxious about nature. They're anxious about not being in control. They have to be in control. A lack of control and order to them, this goes back even as far as Pythagoras. Everything has to be ordered and controlled. If it's not ordered and controlled, then it's by nature, essentially, intrinsically, it's malevolent. But moving on to the next chart. And it's only like about 3 more charts, and then I'm going to take another break, and then we're going to have a discussion and a conversation. Okay? European cultural ego and world domination. So basically, she says the seed of European culture seeks fulfillment through power over others, not working in conjunction and in communion with others, but having power over others. The spiritual energy, the Utama Rojo, it gains more, it builds up more energy from destruction and confrontation with others. And the European cultural ego is comprised of a dialectic where there's a self-image and then there's image of others. The self-image is superior, positive, the subject, the we, the self. The image of others is the inferior, the negative, the object. You see French or European continental philosophers talk about this when they talk about alterity. I'm talking about like Foucault, Derrida, people like that. Okay? So the self-image where you think that you're superior to others just because you are, right, enables the European minority to gain the illusion of power over other. And the image of others prevents majority from realizing the source of their power. So at any rate, that's what she says about the European cultural ego and world domination, okay? Moving on to the next one. European behavior and ethics in racial and cultural domination. According to Richards, the Asili lacks power, it lacks spirit, and it seeks power. It's like a Nietzschean will to power. You don't seek to live in harmony, you seek to be able to control. So to her, the Utamawazo, the thought process prevents joining. It's always competitive. It's individualistic. It's controlled. It's aggressive. There is no spiritual community. And that's intracultural behavior, right? And then that is the rhetorical ethic, right? Because of course there's these ethical concepts, liberty, justice, freedom, and so on and so forth. But I mean, people from other groups, I mean, you create a society that's organized around liberty and freedom, and you liken your own condition to that of being slaves by being taxed without being represented. But you say you say you're being consistent? Like, how are you consistent? How is it possible for you to be consistent saying we live in a free country when the country in and of itself was based on slave labor? It was built off the backs of slaves. That you still refuse to apologize and to reconcile and to repair for. No nod, no hint, other than the rhetoric. But you still see the practices which are deleterious in nature. Now, this is Donna Richards now. So, European imperialism. Okay? And let's follow the shaded area. So, on the left part of the triangle that's pointing downwards, the Utama Rojo seeks control and destruction. And then on the right side of the triangle, it says Utama Rojo seeks control and destruction again. The cultural other is on the innermost, the white area, right? The intermediate area, right? The cultural other. And then on the inside of this, inverted pyramid, she has behavior towards others is violent. Yes, it is violent. Lynching is violent. Attaching people to whipping posts is violent. I mean, the Holocaust is violent. I mean, I'm talking about on a grand scale. Xenophobic, exploitative, destructive, dominative, genocidal. And aggressive. This behavior helps to maintain the integrity of European culture by displacing aggression. Now, I can tell you right now, man, I've studied the internecine wars between Europeans, man, the Goths, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Celts, the Danes, and not to say that other people don't have conflicts. They do. There's always going to be conflicts among human beings. But the scale of the violence is unparalleled. And the magnitude of the control is obsessive. The dehumanization and the demonization of alterity is epic in its proportions. Name for me one culture who's acted this violently on this scale and has an aversion to thinking and interpolating other ways of being and is more syncretic, meaning they're able to synthesize other aspects of other cultures without appropriating it and then demonizing the very people that gave it to them in the first place. The ideology of European world domination. So you got the epistemology, which is the utamawazo, or the thought process. Then you have the spiritual or the emotive aspect, right? So the thinking is related to universalism, right? Which is the ideological doctrine of European superiority. It's imperialistic, absolutistic, and monolithic. And why do we say this, man? European culture is it's not a universal it's not universal. It's cultural particularity masquerading around as universality. The English language is one of thousands of languages in the world. Their principles of understanding, thinking, and cognition and their scientific principles are culturally particular products that are dynamic and are in flux. These are the facts. The Utama Rojo, which is the emotive, the energy aspect, the feeling, the vibe, if you want to put it that way, is based on progressivism. The methodology of European supremacy, which is destructive, especially technological progress. It's destructive. It's consuming. Right now, we're destroying the universe. Well, the planet. There are already people talking about this. Like, damn, look at the environment and what we're doing to it. I remember the movie. You ever see the movie Avatar? Where you got the guys coming in, all they want is the damn resource. Well, they have a great resource here. Oh, we're gonna bulldoze over the whole fucking community. Oh, forget that there are people there who are, living symbiotically in a relationship with the environment. Fuck them. We just need this resource so we can take it back to where we are so we can wage war or generate a profit. Is that all it is? Is that the only motivation? And there are philosophers who understand this as well and critique this, who are European themselves. And then you have Vasily, the seed, seeks energy by imposing disorder on the world through racial and cultural domination. And the funny thing about it is, when you start talking about race, a lot of motherfuckers, man, they get shit twisted. Because race is a construct, to be perfectly honest. It is. But it's a construct that has real world consequences. Racial thinking has become so reified in American culture that you can have a child and be so-called white, and you can have a mixed child, and that child will not be part of your race. You'll have that child still remain a fucking slave on a plantation, owing to your concepts of genealogy and kinship and clanship. You got people denying their own DNA according to some construct that's divisive, exploitative, and destructive. You can't even love your own fucking kids because they don't fit into your concept of clan and race. But then you'll say we being reverse racist by even critiquing the shit. I say fuck that. But we can have a conversation about it. And this is the last chart I'm going to show, okay? The last chart. The tangle of European cultural pathology creates system of European world domination. The seed of the culture lacks spirit and it seeks power to fill the void. Okay? The Asili, she says, is entropic, meaning that it's declining, it's pathological, it's unnatural, and it reorders the universe through and is justified by its cognition. Knowledge is an act of aggression. They have no cosmic view. It's all based on dividing and analyzing and separating. The thought process is confrontational. It's fanatically rationalistic. It's objectifying and it denies spirit. And the Utamawazo and the Utamaroho are mutually supportive because the effective energy of the Asili makes it so. The spirit is consuming, it's expansionist, it's unbalanced, and it needs an other. It needs an enemy to itself. It expresses itself and seeks fulfillment through these things, right? Then moving up. Institutionalized religion, Christianism is proselytizing. It's not practicing what is being preached, but it's proselytizing, meaning you need to believe what I believe. It is against nature, it's hierarchical, it's white supremacist, it's patriarchal, exaggeratedly patriarchal, and non-spiritual. Ideologies and values. Money is the symbol of value. Now, I mean, even the ancient philosophers understood that money is only instrumentally valuable. I mean, it only has instrumental value. It is not intrinsically valuable. But in this culture, it is. It's what everybody's trying to get. The value system is materialistic. It's based on universal dominance. It's based on white supremacy and the devaluation of spirit as Ani defines it. The aesthetic is artificial, non-spiritual, white, pristine, and rational. That's why they call jazz jungle music. There's a difference between classical music and jazz music, man. Just listen to the different styles. One is spontaneous and circular. The other is linear and rigid and follows a specific pattern. And not to say that there's no beauty in it at all, but it's not democratic at all. It's dictatorial. One composer sits and makes this shit, and you can't deviate from the way the notes are played. That's not how jazz is. Everybody's supposed to interpret a jazz composition in their own unique way. In fact, you aren't really actually playing jazz if you're playing the tune the same way somebody else played it. Self-image is controlling nature, superior, rational, and white. And all you got to do is look at what David Hume said, what Abraham Lincoln said, what Immanuel Kant said, what George Wilhelm Hegel said. All these philosophers basically said white is the shit. You look at Hegel's philosophy, man, he basically says that the Geist of European and Western culture is the culmination, the end towards which all being is moving towards. And then you start talking about Kant and what he says about the Aufklärung, the Enlightenment, how men pull themselves out of childlike primitiveness into enlightenment. The image of others is that they're inferior. They're part of nature, which needs to be controlled. They're objects. They're irrational, and they're black. They're niggers. Their intracultural behavior, there is no cosmic self. They're just subjects. They have isolated egos. They're conflicting, they're competitive, and they're aggressive. And those are virtues. Think about what's going on now, man. We got a so-called gender war, and it's like one gender trying to have control and dominate the other, or to talk about how they've been dominated and how they're being oppressed. Like, this is all giving birth to out of this culture. Where the subject is prior. I'm thinking of Descartes, ergo cogito sum. I think, therefore I am. And the subjective nature of aesthetics, morality, egoism, layer it with egotism. And then she says behavior towards others. They treat us like non-humans. They exploit us. They're imperialistic and they're genocidal. They kill us because they're not us. They're superior to us. They have to exterminate us or exploit us. I'm going to take a break right quick, man. You got any questions? You want to make a comment? Feel free to do so at this time. Be right back. All right, man, we back. I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And I just read to you certain segments of Yurugu. Okay? And I haven't been looking at the super chats or anything like that. You can join me if you want to during this time. Ask me any questions. Make any comments if you want to. If nobody really actually chimes or joins in, I'm going to break wide. I know that there was one person who was here. He said, what does the acronym mean in the thumbnail? Ibmore76. There is no acronym for Yurugu. Yurugu is an African word, a doggone word, about a being. And you would have caught this if you were here earlier. But for the most part, it is, a being that creates divisiveness. In her own terms, Yurugu is a being in doggone mythology which is responsible for the disorder in the universe. It's a being conceived in denial of the natural order, which then acts to initiate and promote disharmony in the universe. It's a Loki. It's a Sethian or Setian entity. In African cosmology, such a being is deficient in spiritual sensibility, is perpetually in conflict, is limited cognitively, and is threatening to the well-being of humanity. That's how she characterizes it. Okay? That's how she characterizes Yurugu. Chaos Rain, what's good, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing, bro?
What's good, man? That was a good stream. I read that book over a decade ago. I can't remember much about the book, but I will say the question that should be asked during the time of Donna Richards' works in that book. Has she laid out more of the overall view of systems and impressions in a way she used symbolism and African terminologies to our people that don't really speak the African language from her ability?
Say that one more. Ask the question in another way one more time, so I can.
The question asks, because we don't speak a different language, speak English most of our existence since capture, do you feel she laid out using African terms from the west part of Africa, like symbolisms and certain phrases, to lay out her point about, supremacy, white supremacy, etc.?
Well, I mean,
To how we
she's challenging white hegemony. She's challenging European hegemony, and she's an African nationalist, which most of us are not. Especially in the black manosphere, you got guys like fuck black nationalism, fuck Afrocentrism. And I think it's primarily because we're orientated towards a white way of the world. Our culture was excised from us. There are no remnants of African culture in us other than the vestiges of it. We like I remember the song, Night of the Living Bassheads from Public Enemy, how it comes on. When we were brought here, we were robbed of our name. We lost our religion, our culture, our God. And many of us, by the way we act, we even lost our minds. And that's cultural imperialism, because you don't even have the tools requisite to resist it. You're so thoroughly immersed in it. You're so, culturally, imperialistically turned out, you don't even know what to do. You don't even know how to make a move. You're cut off. You are deracinated from your cultural ancestry. Absolutely, positively. You don't even know who the fuck what your last name was or what tribe you belong to. That's one of the reasons why the Haitians were able to at least stage a revolution using voodoo as its, emotive or energy principle. And although they were syncretic in the way that they practiced their religion, the Haitians did, or Saint Domingue, they at least had a cultural tradition to draw upon to resist Western culture. We sit and do the Daffy dance. I'm just being honest, man. We do a lot of Daffy dancing, bro. A lot. We do a lot of this. It's like we're them. Our value system is their value system. We strive to be more like them because we don't have any way to resist it. I'm just, I'm keeping it real. Anybody want to contest it and talk about it and have a conversation about it, we can. But a lot of people, and look, Herb Saint says New Orleans is one of the few places that has preserved Africanism. And it has. It had. I'll say that. It's one of the last, and it's also because it was a French populated area and of the Maroon populations in Louisiana. So I'll concur with that. Y'all have possessed more African culture than say, for example, the people who are under the rule and the thumb of the Anglos. So step on up, man. Anybody want to deride this? Want to critique this? There was a white dude in the QA. Come on back up. I mean, we dealing with historical facts. Now, I'm not getting into the particulars, but these people have done a hell of a deed, man, throughout the world. They've committed a whole bunch of acts of atrocities throughout the world, none of which they're apologetic for. Because to them, this is progress. It just is what it is. And a lot of guys don't like this kind of conversation because it's going to require them to actually think differently. And even thinking in and of itself can become habitual. Your mode of thinking can become habitual. But we like to give so much superiority to rationality. But even thinking in and of itself becomes canalized and rigid. So, I mean, like if you, what the question Good Mother asks is, what's the difference between the value systems you're speaking about? Well, one is linear, the other is circular. One tries to control the other works in conjunction with the other. One tries to objectify nature, one perceives nature as, you know, something you're in harmony with, that you have a symbiotic relationship with. One says that, you know, you have to have absolute control over others who are inferior to you, other than seeing humanity as an extension of oneself. It's a difference, man. All you got to do is just look at native populations all throughout the world, especially before they become so-called technically advanced and industrialized. I'd like to welcome Hirotsu to the stream. How you doing? I'd like to welcome Hirotsu to the stream. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I got two windows going on, so I'm getting a little echo real quick. Okay.
Yeah, all you got to do is close your YouTube window, man. Just close it out. When you're on StreamYard, it's no need to have YouTube open at all.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
How you doing today? Yeah, I really appreciate doing this book. It's a really eye-opening book. Yeah, I just wanted to mention another book that I really felt went well with this book is The History of White People by Nell Irvin Painter.
Oh, that was you in the chat? That was you in the chat?
Yeah.
Put that up there? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it just gives a nice historical storyline to, you know, how Europe started. And yeah, it's when reading this book, Yurugu, I haven't finished it yet. But yeah, from going from a more historical angle and then more of the philosophy. Yeah, it leaves no stones unturned. So
and
yeah,
there's
it was
also
really
another brother, man. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. It's not The Invention of White People, but it's another. It's a white dude who wrote a book. Let me look his name up, man. I'm looking it up.
You mean the Iceman and Heritage?
No, The Creation of White People. What is this dude's name, man? The Invention of the White Race. Theodore Allen. That's it. The Invention of the White Race. But it's written by a dude who doesn't identify as white. Okay? And it's free online. I mean, it's something that you can download. And the book is really good. He basically says, look, there's no such thing as whiteness, really. It's a fabrication used to assert control and to cleave human beings apart so that a hierarchy can be established, but really only so the people at the top of the hierarchy are able to reap the benefits of the exploitation and the violence that they, impose on other people. And so he basically has denounced whiteness. Like he's basically, I have an ethnicity, but I don't have a race. Like I'm not white.
Yeah, I think that's really apparent. I think even just looking, another good book is Settlers by Jay Sakai, and he kind of talks about the mythology of the white proletariat. And what he details is how, and also the history of white people, like not everybody was white. Like gradually the Irish became white, gradually the Italians became white. Yeah, it's not an ethnicity. It's more, it's a way to join the group that controls the resources and decision making. It's not even a thing. It's pretty amazing how it's, right, it just hides right there in broad daylight, and people are just okay with it. But I think we're seeing now with other races that are coming to the States, they're realizing that they can't get a seat at the table. So I don't know what's going to happen with whiteness, but it's definitely pretty obvious what it is and its function.
We didn't create it, man. All this racial shit. Black folks didn't create that. Niggers, black people did not create niggers or the concept of niggers. Now, we had in-groups and out-groups, I'm pretty sure, related to clans, but not to these extremes. To the point where you're trying to move around the world and control like land masses entirely and exporting millions of people from one landmass to another in order for them to perform labor for you. And not to say that other people have never had slaves, but there's nothing like European slavery, man, throughout the world. The close second will have to be the Arabic slave trade, which in many ways was as barbaric, but damn, this is some unique shit right here.
Yeah,
it's unique. It's unique, man.
Yeah,
and basically what she says is that you find elements of this going all the way back to ancient culture, Greek culture, which they lionize and worship. And there have been European philosophers who want to get out of this, like they want to remove themselves from this. But it's the cultural tone has been set, the way of thinking, the structured thought, and the emotive energy has been set on a path. The question is, how long can it be sustained? I don't know.
Green Gorilla is only sustained by the validation of people. That's it. If people don't really validate don't want this to exist, it will no longer exist. It's that simple. But usually it's hard because it's already controlled in your mind.
Well, that's the issue though. Like, I mean, I had this, this song a long time ago, man. It said, we no longer have the fight to flee like runaways, but there will be brighter days as soon as we learn to say, Anuk also are like the fables of yesterday. It's like we don't have the heart to fight. We don't even desire to resist against it. All we want to do is to create a niche and nest within it.
Yeah, I think this is some economist critiques like like we live in the end of history, because of the because of no one can imagine a world without capitalism. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine a world without capitalism. And I think it's the same thing with whiteness. It's easier to imagine the world which is happening right now, burning in flames than it is to imagine a world without with white people aren't calling the shots. Europe and the colonialist settler countries aren't on top.
Man, I believe they'll try to blow up the fucking landmass in North America, man, if they can't maintain and hold it for their own purposes. I believe that. I swear to God, I believe that shit.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it now, right? I mean, this this past week alone, the flooding and the it's just been a very slow process, but I there's bleeding it out. I think it's not it's happening in real time.
But I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's a polemic. It's what this work that she created is. It's a polemic. And, you know, you can't really be mad at her and accuse it of being reverse racism when it's like, hold on, look what you're doing to first world peoples and majority peoples throughout the planet. You went to China, exploited them. You went to Africa, exploited them. You came to Native America and exploited them because you wanted to control and dominate and have power and dominion over these people. And you used Christianity as a means by which to proselytize, but you didn't practice what you preached. You weren't merciful. You weren't kind. You didn't show love to your neighbors. You enslaved your neighbors. You treated them like less than human. You developed eugenic theories to treat us less than human. And you see this shit in new ways, man. It just keeps it just keeps moving in different directions. Is Marimba, she says, is Marimba Ani a feminist? No, I don't think she's a feminist at all. She believes in complementarity. The yin and the yang. She believes in complementariness. Apositional complementarity is what she calls this. Apositional complementarity. That's what yin and yang is. Polarity. But the problem with feminism is they're not doing anything other than what they accuse patriarchs of doing. They're not changing the basic structure of society and the way the society operates. They just want to have their piece of the pie. They're not doing shit different. They're not changing the whole goddamn system. It would be different if that's what their goal was. They're relying on the same system to complete and to fulfill their objectives. This is what I have an issue with feminism about. They're not trying to change the corporate structure. They just want into the corporate structure. They're not trying to change the carceral state. They're using the carceral state and the police and the prison system to achieve their objectives. They're not changing the goddamn thing. That's the rhetorical ethic, man.
Can I ask you a question real quick about this?
And let me just say this to good mother. One of the things that you have to be mindful of, man, this whole idea of a meritocracy is something brand fucking new in European culture. Okay? At first, your merit is your birth. Your birth gives you your merit. Okay? This is like European culture from time immemorial. All this shit about merit. They're trying to stop like Asians from being able to get into schools and shit. Now they want to, cut the testing out because they're doing better on the testing. The Asians are. So now they want to get rid of the testing and shit like that. It's like these people, man, they use knowledge to fulfill their cultural objectives. And it doesn't lead their cultural objectives, their ethics. They don't lead with their ethics. Their ethics is lip service, man. You can tell, look, how you gonna have a country based on liberty and justice for all to have slaves, bruh? And this shit is deeper than feminism. At the end of the day, this shit is deeper than feminism. Only came up out of slavery. Let's be honest about this shit. That's why Tommy Curry said you mistake a backlash for a movement. These white women didn't have a fucking problem with the patriarchy until the civil rights movement and all this. And now it's time to have all this, now it's time to have all these rights for women. Now it's time to go into the workforce. They ain't trying to change the basic structure of society, man. What's up, Ron? I see you in the house, dog. What's good with you, man? Big up to you, bro. Big up to my brother from another, Ron O'Neill, man. Big up to you, bro. Big up. So, all I'm saying is, man, at the end of the day, these people, man, are like Loki, bro. They create confusion. And have been doing so for quite a bit of time. Their culture is unlike any other but they have universalized it so that everyone just basically accepts it as the truth. What makes their culture superior? What makes it superior?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got Winfield in the show. What's going on?
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what I was
We got Winfield in the show. Man, Winfield, you got to turn off your YouTube.
okay. All right, is it off?
No, it's not yet. I can't tell, but it's going to take a delay because you
All
know the sound.
Okay. I'm good now.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I was just gonna say was, yeah, we're reading that book, Yurugu, on the Champagne Sharks podcast. It's one of our book club books. And what I'm learning from this whole thing about the directive of the Asili to dominate is that, just that raw domination in and of itself is a destructive endeavor, because once you have domination, you've propped up you've created all of these boogeymen, through colonialization that you've knocked off one by one. And now you've run into a point where the entire world is occupied. There's nowhere else to go. There's no one else to dominate. So you end up being these mighty nations picking on these small, tiny countries, just to exploit their goods and resources. And as we can see, the end result of that is essentially the destruction of our world. And I just see domination without purpose as, a destructive endeavor. And I just feel like the entire process that they've gone through, Hirotsu was talking about the history of white people. It's about consolidating, power. They folded people into whiteness to give them a better deal, to make everybody, part and parcel and complicit in the act. I feel like the only natural response to this is for us to, develop our own, force against that, which would be, for lack of a better word, Pan-Africanism, because if you have whiteness, we're always at the opposite end of the scale, existing in blackness. So, that position is fixed, just as one end of it is supreme, you have to have the other end. Everybody exists in the middle, is cutting a better deal, because they have better proximity to, to keep us where we are. So I feel the only way for us to kind of fix this is to, reconcile differences between us internally, be they based in gender, class, religion, language, whose daddy is better, that kind of thing. And just, develop our own force to create justice, because I feel like if we don't take ownership and do that, where we too are taking part in the end of our species. I hate to sound grim, but that's just my interpretation of it as I look and I drive around and I see forest fires everywhere, people, hundreds of people dying from heat stroke because they can't afford air conditioning and the like. It's a very dispassionate system, as you explained in those charts. And the last one was the best one because it details everything that we see and live every day. So I just feel like if we could do that, that would be, the way forward to, solving the problem before it becomes too late to solve. That's really all I had to say.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate your comment, man.
All right, I'll see you later, GG. I'm gonna jump back down.
All right, take care, brother. Be good. So, I think the woman is a genius. I don't agree with everything she says. But one of the things she does say is that, like, if you look at every other culture around the world, prior to the advent of Christianity, you see like cultures with pantheons of male and female gods. There's no lionization of male energy without the lionization of feminine energy, because all of these gods are nothing but aspects and manifestation of being. That's what they are. Okay, that's what they're supposed to be emblematic of. So at the end of the day, it's not just about, and I'm responding to Good Mother. It doesn't matter what culture you're talking about, whether it's even Greek culture. But when you get like the sects that emanate from like Hebrewism, all you start to see is, and as it's adopted by Westerners, it becomes something altogether different. But I mean, the seeds of this were drawn out in Western culture a long time ago, though, with Aristotle, Plato. But it's supposed to be complementary apositionality. It's not supposed to be each, person seeking to dominate and control the other, or to do what other people are doing, or to take over their nature or their character, or to move in and out of, different kinds of sexes and shit like that. It's not about, one group, one person, males or females dominating each other. It's supposed to be complementariness. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be cooperation. The brother EOS webcam, are you still there? Felicia Gray wants to know what your podcast is so she could actually get in on it and hear what your conversations are related to the book. Or maybe he's gone. I don't know. He's still in the
Oh, I'm still here. It's not my podcast. It's Tease. It's Champagne Sharks.
Leave a link in the if you can, please leave a link in the chat, and that way she'll be able to get to it at some later time.
I'll post one in the chat in a minute.
Yeah, so it's about complementarity, not oppositionality, but apositionality. It's like the yin and the yang. They're not trying to dominate each other. They're trying to, balance each other out. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a balance. But there is no balance.
I think, in chapter 1, she kind of talks about this, right, with the with like Plato and Aristotle, and how they first planted the seed. You have the PhD, so I'm sure you explain it better than me, but like how they created, they separated man from nature, man from woman, logic from emotion. And this is how they're able to, dehumanize other humans, because they're able to separate themselves from essentially themselves, right? And this whole concept of the yin and yang doesn't work. We have like this mind and body, and like even today, it's hard for people to think about the mind and body being the same thing, but they're seen as kind of two separate entities, where the mind controls the body, and it's not this kind of yin and yang concept. Is that correct?
That is, but it is a correct view. But yin and yang is not separating as much as it is just exploring and understanding different aspects of the human manifestation and other manifestations within nature itself. But like what the Greeks did, you're right. They created these rigid hierarchies. So, the spirit is, superior, or the rational aspect is superior to the emotive aspect, is superior to the body aspect. But like, what happens when you don't have a body? I mean, at least Aristotle understood, though, like, okay, you got to have form and matter together. But Plato wanted to split form and matter. And he wanted to postulate that, okay, mind or spirit is better than matter. And once you start to do that, once you make that move and you say mind or spirit or Geist or whatever you want to call it, logos or whatever you want to call it, is different than matter, then matter becomes something that is evil. And nature becomes evil because it's disordered. Okay, it's not as, it doesn't have the same ontological importance as form. That's what Plato called spirit, form. He called it the realm of the forms. Okay, but Aristotle, all the Greeks did this. All the Greeks, the Greeks. You talk about patriarchy; they were ultimately patriarchal. Okay. I mean, they basically said women were at least, well, Plato didn't say this because Plato thought that, women could be just as noble as men. Okay. At least Plato thought that. So I got to give Plato credit there. I'm not going to, lie about Plato. He thought that women could have noble souls just like men, although they weren't as strong as men. So at least he said that. But Aristotle said the women were deformed males. They were deformed, which I think is to me is utterly ridiculous. But that's what he said. You know.
Yeah. Thanks for clearing that. I gotta go, but thanks for clearing up. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you putting this information out there.
Oh, no doubt, man. Thank you for joining me, man, and stepping up and having a conversation about this. Appreciate it.
Peace out. Looking forward to your next video.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm jumping off too, but you definitely got a new subscriber and joiner because I've listened to your content a little bit recently, and I like the way you frame and articulate your discussions. I think it's very enlightening.
I appreciate that, man. Please, if you can, man, email me, and in that way we could have a conversation, and you know, I could join in on your podcast if you ever take callers or whatever the case may be. So
Okay, that'll be dope. That'll be dope. I'm actually the same with the podcast. I'm the same podcast as well. Yeah, dope.
Oh, well, for sure, man. I would definitely like to chop it up with you guys at some point.
Yeah. Do you want to let me know what the email address is?
It's GwithaPhD at gmail.com.
Oh, perfect. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
So it's not the $ though. Drop the $. That's for Cash App. But
okay.
Yeah, it's just GwithaPhD at gmail.com.
Got it. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you. So at any rate, man, you know, that's, you know, if anybody else has any questions, man, I'll entertain them. If not, I'm about to sign off, man. It's Friday. I got groceries, and I'm ready to, you know, to eat, man. I'm ready to put some food into this spirit of mine, so I can propel myself forward to the next day. But y'all be in good health, man. I did this as a request for a brother by the name of Terrain 1017. So it just is what it is, man. This is the outcome of it. And this stuff is taught at universities. Even, you know, like I've had one of the members of my committee who teaches this book in his class, a white guy, a preacher. So, but he's into, you know, continental philosophy and Levinas. So it is what it is, man. But anyway, man, I ain't gonna hold y'all, man. This is Friday. I'm ready to break wide and do me and enjoy my evening, man, and have a little fun and engage in some recreation. So I'll be back tomorrow. I'll let you until then, man. Peace.